Guardians of the Wild vanished without a trace. 5 park rangers disappeared, leaving behind mystery as deep and untamed as the landscapes they protected. From shadowy forests to remote peaks, their stories remind us that nature's beauty has a darker, more unpredictable side. Grab a flashlight. We're diving into the eerie unknown. It was just another summer morning in North Carolina, one of those days that promises nothing more than the usual calm of the Blue Ridge Parkway. The birds are chirping, the sun is shining, and all feels right with the world. But for Joseph David Kolodzki, a seasoned park ranger with 13 years under his belt, it would be a day unlike any other. It would be the last day of his life. Now, Joe wasn't your average ranger. He was the kind of guy who knew every tree, every trail, and every hidden corner of the park like the back of his hand. If the Blue Ridge Parkway had a guidebook, Joe would have been the author. He was the rock that visitors leaned on, and the one who made sure everyone was safe as they hiked through the stunning but wild terrain. He wasn't just a park ranger, he was a protector of the park's magic, a living, breathing encyclopedia of the land. On June 21st, 1998, Joe headed out for what seemed like a routine patrol, leaving behind his wife and 3 kids. His task? To check out a report of someone armed with a rifle at the Big Witch Overlook, scaring the bejeebers out of park visitors. Just another day at the office, right? Well, not exactly. Joe, ever the professional, knew exactly what to do. He spotted the suspect from a distance and immediately radioed for backup. He kept his cool, staying out of sight while calmly planning how to handle the situation. Classic Joe, always thinking ahead, always ready for whatever the wilderness threw at him. But as he was about to approach the suspect, things took a wild turn. As Joe stepped out of his patrol car, the unthinkable happened. The person he was trying to help turned the tables and ambushed him, firing shots that shattered the park's usual silence. In the blink of an eye, a dedicated ranger's life was taken, and the tranquility of the park was broken forever. What followed was straight out of a bad movie. Another ranger arrived on the scene, only to find themselves caught in the crossfire. The suspect, ever the coward, bolted into the thick woods, disappearing into the very landscape Joe had spent years protecting. Despite heroic efforts from his colleagues and a quick response from emergency teams, Joe was airlifted to a hospital in Tennessee, where, heartbreakingly, he was pronounced dead. The park, once his safe haven, had become the scene of a devastating loss. The man responsible for Joe's death was eventually caught on the neighboring Cherokee Indian Reservation. It brought some closure to the frantic manhunt and to the community. But let's be real, justice never really feels complete. Life without parole for the guy who took Joe's life didn't bring Joe back, nor could it fill the void in his family's hearts. Years have passed since that tragic day, but Joe's legacy is far from forgotten. Tributes, memorials, and stories keep his memory alive. Joe wasn't just a ranger, he was a mentor, a friend, a dad, and a husband. His life continues to inspire everyone, from seasoned rangers to those casual hikers who just wanted to enjoy the beauty he helped protect. His story isn't just about bravery, it's about the everyday, quiet heroism that goes unnoticed until tragedy strikes. As the seasons change and time moves on, the memory of that June day remains fresh. Joe Kolodzki may be gone, but his spirit still lingers in the very land he dedicated his life to protecting. It's a reminder of the sacrifices made by the unsung heroes who keep our parks safe. They may not wear capes, but they sure make a difference. It was supposed to be the perfect New Year's Day, a fresh start in the crisp, snowy air of Mount Rainier National Park. Picture it, towering peaks, towering trees, and the kind of quiet that only a winter wonderland can offer. People were arriving, eager to ring in 2012 with a little mountain magic. But what began as a serene winter paradise quickly descended into chaos and heartbreak. Enter Margaret Anderson, a 34-year-old park ranger, mother of 2, and a beacon of dedication and warmth. Everyone who knew her would tell you she was the very definition of a park ranger. Brave, compassionate, and always ready to protect the park and its visitors. Her smile could light up the coldest of winter mornings. But on this particular morning, Margaret was about to face something no one could have predicted. Out there in the snow, Far from the peaceful embrace of the park, a man named Benjamin Colton Barnes was on the run. A former soldier with more than his fair share of demons, Barnes had just been involved in a violent incident in a Seattle suburb. And where did he think he could escape to? The calm beauty of Mount Rainier, of course. Because if there's one thing a guy on the run wants, it's to make a break for it through the wilderness, right? As the park's visitors enjoyed the snowy beauty, a checkpoint was set up to make sure everything was safe and sound. That's when Barnes, in full military gear and probably thinking he could outrun the law, blasted right through it. His goal? Paradise. Literally. Paradise is a place in the park, but it's also a word that perfectly summed up what he was hoping to find. Peace, isolation, and perhaps a place to disappear for good. Margaret wasn't about to let that happen. Stationed at the checkpoint, she got the call. Without missing a beat, she and her fellow ranger, Daniel Kamich, set up a roadblock, determined to stop Barnes from reaching the heart of the park, where families were out, enjoying the snow. This was no place for a man like Barnes, and Margaret wasn't going to let him ruin what should have been a peaceful day. But the standoff turned violent, fast. Barnes, desperate and armed, opened fire without warning. Margaret didn't stand a chance. In an instant, her life was taken. Her bravery, however, meant that the carnage could have been so much worse. By stopping Barnes from reaching paradise, she likely saved countless lives. Her sacrifice was the ultimate act of courage. What was once a serene landscape now echoed with grief. The peaceful sounds of nature were replaced by the harsh clamor of a manhunt. Law enforcement flooded the area, determined to track down Barnes. And, true to form, the wilderness swallowed him up. Eventually, he was found and met a tragic end in the very wilds he tried to escape into. But Margaret's story is more than just one of tragedy. It's a reminder of the dangers those who protect our national parks face daily. Her love for the land, her unshakable sense of duty, and her willingness to make the ultimate sacrifice will forever be etched into the park's history. The park that Margaret loved will always remember her, and so should we. That cold January morning is a reminder that life is fragile, and yet the spirit of those who dedicate themselves to protecting our wild spaces is unbreakable. Margaret Anderson's legacy will live on, forever intertwined with the park she loved and served. In July 1996, a haunting story unfolded in the sprawling wilderness of Sequoia and Kings Canyon National Parks in the heart of California's Sierra Nevada. It's a tale of nature's grandeur, human devotion, and the unsolved mystery of Randy Morganson, an experienced backcountry ranger whose disappearance still echoes through the mountains he called home. Born in 1945 in Yosemite Valley, Randy's connection to the wild was lifelong. Raised in the shadow of granite cliffs and towering sequoia, he graduated from Yosemite Valley School and later dedicated 28 seasons to patrolling Sequoia and Kings Canyon National Parks. For Randy, these parks weren't just a job, they were a sanctuary. Known for his encyclopedic knowledge of the High Sierra, he was a quiet protector of the land, spending his mornings savoring coffee and the sunrise before setting out to preserve the wilderness he loved. Randy wasn't just a ranger, he was a guardian. His friend George Durkee recalled his calm demeanor and knack for ensuring the safety of visitors while safeguarding the pristine beauty of the park. He detested litter, humorously calling careless visitors snus americanus, and often carried sacks to collect garbage left behind. His work wasn't just a duty, it was a personal mission to ensure future generations could enjoy the wilderness as he had. On July 21, 1996, Randy set out from his station at Bench Lake for a routine patrol, planning to return in 2 to 3 days. A note left on his tent outlined his route, but in a minor slip, he mistakenly dated it June instead of July. He packed lightly, leaving behind his revolver, a choice that suggested he anticipated no trouble. But Randy never returned. Days passed without a radio check-in, and when his absence was noticed, his colleague Rick Sanger discovered the note and reported him missing. The search that followed was one of the largest in National Park Service history. Over 100 personnel scoured the rugged terrain, but not a single clue was found. It was as if Randy had vanished into thin air. Investigators uncovered hints of emotional struggles in Randy's personal life. A recent divorce and bouts of depression had weighed heavily on him. He had shared feelings of deep loss and questioned his life's worth, leaving those close to him wondering if these struggles had played a role in his disappearance. For years, Randy's fate remained a painful mystery. Then, in 2001, his remains were discovered near a creek in a gorge. It appeared he had suffered a tragic accident, likely falling through a snow bridge and succumbing to his injuries. Hidden beneath snow and ice, his body had been concealed from the massive search efforts. Theories about Randy's disappearance remain varied. Some speculate he might have staged his death to secure benefits for his ex-wife, while others accept it as an unfortunate accident. Whatever the truth, Randy's story is a poignant reminder of the beauty and unpredictability of the wilderness. Randy Morganson's legacy lives on in the trails he patrolled and in the memories of those who knew him. His life and disappearance are a testament to the delicate balance between humans and nature, a relationship filled with wonder, danger, and enduring mysteries. Deep in the heart of southeastern Arizona, where the Chiricahua Mountains slice through the horizon, lies a mystery as haunting as the towering peaks themselves. This isn't a story of natural beauty or serene trails. It's the tale of a man who disappeared into this rugged landscape over 4 decades ago, leaving behind questions that still echo through the canyons. Paul Fugate, a 41-year-old park ranger at Chiricahua National Monument, wasn't just a guardian of the park, he was part of its fabric. Known for his passion for the outdoors and unwavering dedication to conservation, Paul was as familiar to visitors as the rock formations and trails he adored. He wasn't just a ranger, he was a cornerstone of the park's community. On January 13, 1980, a typical Sunday afternoon, Paul stepped out of the visitor center for a routine patrol. His destination, the recently acquired Faraway Ranch area, a new addition to the park he was eager to inspect. Dressed in his ranger uniform, badge gleaming, Paul told a colleague he'd be back by 4:30 p.m. With a casual wave, he headed down the trail and vanished into thin air. At first, his absence was barely a blip on the radar, but as the clock ticked past his return time, concern morphed into alarm. By evening, it was clear something was terribly wrong. The park, once Paul's sanctuary, seemed to swallow him whole. What followed was a massive search operation, tracking dogs, aircraft, volunteers from every imaginable agency scouring the unforgiving terrain. Yet, despite the exhaustive efforts, Paul had disappeared as if the land itself had erased him. For Dodie Fugate, Paul's wife, his disappearance was an unrelenting nightmare. "I feel as though a part of me has been sliced off," she once said, her grief palpable. Their life together, built on love and adventure, was shattered. The search for Paul wasn't just about finding him. It became a desperate quest for closure that stretched into decades. Speculation about Paul's fate has run rampant. Did he stumble upon something sinister in the park's remote corners? An illegal operation, perhaps? Or was it a tragic accident, his body lost to the wilderness? Theories abound, but without evidence, they remain frustratingly hollow. Even those closest to Paul, like his friend Barbara Elfrant, admit their once bright hope has dimmed over time. "I don't believe, as I did originally, that it will be solved," she confessed, burdened by decades of unanswered questions. In 2018, the National Park Service reignited the case, citing new evidence and upping the reward for information to $60,000. Yet, the details of this supposed breakthrough remain as elusive as Paul himself. For his family and friends, the mystery persists, along with the unrelenting ache of his absence. Dodie describes their bond as two halves of the same person. Her words carry the weight of a love that endures, even in the face of loss. Somewhere out there, she believes, lies the other half of her heart, waiting to be found. Paul Fugate's disappearance is a chilling reminder of nature's vastness, where beauty and danger intertwine. As the years pass, the quest for answers continues, leaving behind a story that's as much about loss as it is about the enduring human spirit. Let us take you on a journey to the heart of Yellowstone National Park, where the trees whisper secrets and the mountains stand tall, watching over the land like ancient guardians. There lived a ranger who wasn't just a part of the landscape, he was the landscape. Meet Dwayne P. McClure, a man so connected to Yellowstone that it was hard to tell where he ended and the wilderness began. Born into a world where and the rustling leaves held stories, Dwayne was practically raised by nature. From the moment he could walk, he was out there, listening to the land's every murmur. While most kids were learning their ABCs, Dwayne was learning to read the forest's silent language. Trees, rivers, wildlife. He understood them all like old friends. Dwayne wasn't just a ranger. He was a living, breathing part of Yellowstone. For 10 years, he worked with the National Park Service, serving as a steward of the land that shaped him. Each morning, as dawn's first light bathed Yellowstone Lake in gold, Dwayne would silently glide across the water in his canoe, a figure at peace with the world. He moved with the grace of someone who'd spent lifetimes in the wild. For him, the mountains weren't just beautiful, they were home. The park gave him a sense of purpose, a peace only nature can offer. He knew every trail like the back of his hand, every grove of trees, and all the animals that called Yellowstone home. But Dwayne was more than just a ranger. He was the kind of guy who could make you laugh even on the hardest days. He was a son, a brother, a friend, and a force of nature in his own right. His love for the land was infectious, and anyone who crossed his path couldn't help but feel drawn to it and to him. Then came May 22, 1980. It was just another beautiful spring day, with the park blooming in color, when Dwayne set out on his usual patrol across Yellowstone Lake. The waters were still, the sky stretched endlessly above him, and all was quiet, too quiet. Hours passed, and Dwayne didn't return. His radio calls went unanswered, and soon worry turned into panic. Rangers and volunteers who had known Dwayne like family rushed to search the lake, but despite their best efforts, they found only one thing: his canoe, capsized and abandoned. It was a chilling sight, like the lake itself had swallowed its guardian, keeping its secrets hidden beneath the surface. Despite an intense search, Dwayne was never found. The wild, which he had loved so deeply, had kept its silence. Years passed, and though the mystery of his disappearance lingered, Dwayne's legacy didn't fade. His life became a symbol of the sacrifices made by those who dedicate themselves to preserving the wild. As the seasons changed, the story of Dwayne P. McClure continued to echo through Yellowstone. His spirit, forever entwined with the wind, the water, and the land he adored, still whispers across the park he once called home.